Hello everyone. Topic of today's lecture is wave-particle duality. Today we will see first of all the dual nature of the matter, and then we will introduce the new concept of dual nature of matter waves. And then we will see about superposition principle also, and then phase velocity and group velocity. So before we understand wave particle duality or the dual nature of the matter, let's understand first of all the dual nature of the light. See, depending upon the situation, light sometimes behaves like a particle and sometimes it behaves like a wave. For example, if you have interference phenomena, diffraction or polarization, light behaves as if it is a wave. But if we study about the photoelectric effect or Compton effect, which we have studied in the last lecture, that is all explained by the particle nature of the light. All right? So, depending upon the situation, which we will discuss later, how, when light sometimes it behaves like a particle and sometimes it behaves like a wave. See, in this figure, you have one light source, all right, and you have kept one barrier in the path of the light. If light is behaving like a particle, what will happen after the barrier? Shadow will be formed, and the path which was not obstructed by the barrier, light will pass as it is in the straight line which you can see from this figure. All right. But suppose you have a fine edge, all right, and the light strikes. See the light comes, second figure, light is coming from the bulb and now it is striking to the barrier, to the edge of the barrier. What happens? Light bends. Wave actually enters into the shadow region. All right. This phenomena is diffraction, which is the wave nature of the light. So depending upon the situation, once again I am repeating, sometimes it behaves like a particle and sometimes it behaves like a wave. Let's see one example of reflection. One example of reflection. See, if it is a particle or a wave, whatever it is, if light falls on the mirror, it gets reflected. If it is in particles, see the red ball and the black ball, it will fall on the mirror and then it will be reflected back. While if it is wave, light will fall in the wave form on the mirror and then it will be reflected back. Whatever it is, it will obey the laws of reflection. There are two laws of reflection. First is incident ray, reflected ray and the normal all lie at the same plane, and second, angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. In both the cases, whether it is a particle nature or the wave nature, both the laws are obeyed very well. Second example we can see is of refraction. Again, light doesn't matter, light has wave nature or the particle nature, light will fall on the medium, it will bend, and then again after passing through the medium, it will come out after bending. Now the question is, it depends whether it will bend towards the normal or away from the normal. It all depends upon the medium. So in both the cases, you can see very well from the figure that the light enters either in the particle form or in the wave form, it comes out. And so whether it is particle nature or the wave nature, refraction phenomena is obeyed very well. But there are certain experiments where either particle nature will be observed or only wave nature will be observed. All right, let's see. This is the double slit experiment given by Thomas Young in 1801. All right, in 1801, Thomas Young gave this experiment called as double slit experiment. What he has done in this, you can see you have two slits, all right? One slit is here and one slit is here. When light from the main source falls on these two slits, all right, see the bending also takes place, diffraction phenomena takes place, and superposition takes place, due to which interference phenomena also takes place, and you can see the waves, formation of the wave. So this demonstrates very well about the wave nature of the light. Well, let's see the photoelectric effect, which we have already studied in the last few lectures, that when light falls on the cathode, electrons are generated and electric current flows. Now, this was explained by Einstein in 1905 using that light travels in the form of bundles called as quanta or photon. So these bundles, light is traveling in the form of bundles. That means it has particle nature. So photoelectric effect can only be explained by the particle nature of the light. So from these two experiments, we can see that either sometimes light behaves like a wave and sometimes light behaves like a particle. Even Compton effect, which we have studied earlier, in that experiment also can be explained only by the particle nature of the light. So now the question arises, when light will behave like a particle and when it will behave like a wave. This is very important question. Remember that both the conditions, that wave nature and particle nature, will not exist simultaneously. Either it will be a particle or either it will have a wave nature. So when light will behave like a particle and when light will behave like a wave, that is very important thing to understand. This is the very basic concept which you should always keep in mind, when light will behave like a particle and when it will behave like a wave. If you observe the experiment, for example, photoelectric effect, the size of the cathode is very, very large in comparison to the wavelength of the light. Now, first of all, what is wavelength? See, if the light is, or the wave is moving from one place to another, then distance between any two consecutive crust or distance between any two consecutive trough is called as wavelength. This distance is called as wavelength. Or you can also consider it as one distance traveled in one complete cycle, that is also called as wavelength, given by lambda. So if the size of the object on which the light falls, it might be a hole also. You can call it as slit also. Okay. So if the light falls on the slit or on any barrier, or then if the size of the barrier or the slit is 10 times, 100 times, 1000 times, 10,000 times more than the wavelength of the light, then it will behave like a particle. But if the size of the slit or the barrier, or you can say the edge of the barrier, is of the order of the wavelength of light, then it will behave like a wave. Once again, I am repeating, this is very, very important concept which you should always keep in your mind. That if the size of the object or barrier or slit or any opening is 10 times, 100 times or 1000 times or 10,000 times greater than the wavelength of the light, then light will behave like a particle. But if the size of the slit or the barrier is of the order of the wavelength, all right, then the light will behave like a wave. So this is the important thing which you should remember. So now it is very clear that light has dual nature, particle nature as well as wave nature. Now I am going to introduce a very new concept, that matter has dual nature. So there was one scientist called as de Broglie. He gave a hypothesis in 1924. This is called as very bold hypothesis or very bold statement of de Broglie. He gave the statement that as light has a dual nature, similarly each and every moving matter has dual nature. Once again I am repeating, like light has dual nature, similarly each and every moving object, every moving matter has dual nature. So this was de Broglie hypothesis, and this is called as very bold hypothesis or bold statement of de Broglie. Reason is, he gave this hypothesis or his statement without having any experimental evidence. There was no experimental evidence, and he gave this bold statement. And later on, in 1927, Davison and Germer proved this thing, that each and every moving matter is associated with the waves. So the experimental evidence came in 1927, and de Broglie gave statement in 1924. That's why we call it as bold statement. All right, so matter wave associated with the matter are called as matter waves, or you can also call as de Broglie waves. Whatever you feel like, you can call it as matter waves or de Broglie waves. So if the matter has particle nature, it will have energy is equal to mc square and momentum p is equal to mv. But if it has wave nature, the energy will become E is equal to h nu and momentum will become p is equal to h by lambda. So when you have particle nature, you deal with the velocity. But when you have the wave nature, you deal with the frequency of the wave or the wavelength of the wave. So it has dual nature, and very bold statement, again I am repeating, because there was no experimental evidence. Now he told that like light has wavelength given by the formula lambda is equal to h by p, where p is equal to m into c. All right, mass of the photon and the velocity of the light. Similarly, each and every moving matter has same wavelength formula, lambda is equal to hp, but this time momentum is given by the formula mv. P is equal to mv, where m is the mass of the matter and v is the velocity of the light. Here remember that h is Planck's constant, which is equal to 6.625 into 10 raised to power minus 34 joules second. So now the question arises, one important question: why the earth or the moon or the truck or moving car, we don't feel or observe the matter waves? Why? As the statement is there that when each and every moving matter is associated with the wave also. All right. So if it associated with the wave, then suppose I am running, then is matter wave is associated with me? If yes, why we can't feel it or why we can't observe it? All right. So let's see why we can't feel or observe the matter wave associated with earth or moon or sun or truck or any microscopic objects. All right. Let us take an example of the earth. See, wavelength of the earth is given by lambda earth. I have nominated that. is equal to h by mv, standard formula. Now h is equal to 6.625 into 10 raised to power minus 34. And the mass of the earth is 5.9 multiplied by 10 raised to 24 kg. And the velocity of the earth is average velocity. It is equal to 460 meter per second. And on solving, we get approximately about 2.4 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 61 meter. I am interested in the order, I am not interested in the magnitude. Means I am not interested in the value 2.4 or 3 or 5, whatever it is. I am interested in the order, that is 10 raised to power minus 61 meter. See, this order is so small that you cannot feel it or you cannot observe it. Or you can say till now there is no instrument which can observe this small magnitude of the wavelength. All right. Now, let us take an example of the electron. Again the same formula, but this time the mass and the velocities are different. The mass of the electron is 9.1 multiplied by 10 raised to power minus 31 kg. While the speed, I have taken very large speed, that is 10 raised to 6 meter per second. And see, the value is 1.4 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 10 meter. Again, I am interested in the order of the wavelength. So that is 10 raised to minus 10 meter, that means 1 Armstrong, about Armstrong. So Armstrong, you can always measure it. See the X-rays, gamma rays, the value of X-ray, wavelength of the X-ray varies from 1 Armstrong to 100 Armstrong. So this is within the range of that, so you can observe this wavelength. So when you come to the very small objects like electron, proton and neutron, then you can observe the wavelength of this matter. So again, one important concept, again I am going to repeat that concept, that you are in quantum mechanics. See, quantum mechanics deals with a very small object, that microscopic objects which you cannot see by your naked eye. So, electron, proton, neutron you cannot see by your naked eye. So, which theory applies over here? Quantum mechanics, which we have already studied, that when we have very small objects like electron and proton, classical mechanics doesn't work over here, quantum mechanics works over here. So basically we are dealing with the quantum mechanics. Now we have some more formulas of the matter waves or de Broglie waves, which you can get in the numericals. Before that, I would just like to tell you that in nature the matter waves exist. See, suppose you have two balls in your hand with a thread and you are oscillating them. See, both the balls generate matter waves in the water, all right? And then they superimpose and they forms the wave. See, the waves are moving away from the ball to the shore of the river, all right? So same, it appears as if the Young's double slit experiment is here. So in the nature also, which you can observe from this figure, that matter waves exist. All right? This is actually, basically this is Young's double slit experiment. Now the formulas. Now momentum, for momentum I have some new formulas I can replace with kinetic energy and all. See, suppose the matter is moving, either it can be electron or proton or neutron. It has certain kinetic energy since it is moving. So kinetic energy is given by half mv square. So kinetic energy is given by half mv square. What I can do? I can multiply by m and divide by m. But mv is momentum, so I can write p square by 2m. So p will become root of 2m of the kinetic energy. So now you have new momentum which you can replace in the wavelength formula, and you will have new formula lambda is equal to h upon root of 2m multiplied by kinetic energy. Now suppose you have an electron which is moving when you apply a potential difference. All right? When you apply a potential difference, then electrons move. At that time, like in photoelectric effect, at that time, kinetic energy of the electron is equal to EV. So again replacing KE by EV, so lambda is now h upon 2MEV, h upon root of 2MEV. All right, now see, h is Planck's constant, 6.625 into 10 raised to power minus 34, it is a constant quantity. 2 is constant, m is mass of the electron, 9.1 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 31 kg, which is also constant. And the charge of the electron E is 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 coulomb. So that is also constant. So on keeping the constant value and solving them, you will get lambda is equal to, directly you can use this formula, 12.27 divided by root of V. V is voltage over here, Armstrong. All right. It gives directly value in the Armstrong. Now, suppose you move in the thermodynamics part, that means you have heat energy and temperature and all. When you deal with that, at that time, kinetic energy of the matter becomes equal to 3 by 2 kT. So you can replace now kinetic energy by 3 by 2 kT, and the new formula will be lambda is equal to h upon root of 3m kT. So depending upon the numerical, you can use different formula, whichever is applicable for the matter waves or de Broglie waves. Now, I am going to introduce a very important thing here, that using the concept of matter waves, we can very well explain the Bohr's second law, that electrons moves in the stationary orbit and the angular momentum is equal to nh cross. nh cross, here h cross means h upon 2 pi. All right. So this h cross is a short notation for h upon 2 pi. So how he can explain using the matter waves? See, according to the Bohr's quantization theory, that electrons keeps on revolving in the orbit, in the stationary orbit, where they do not lose any energy. And that's why he was able to explain the Rutherford model, shortcoming of the Rutherford model. According to the Rutherford model, the electron keeps on revolving around the nucleus, but he could not explain why electron does not fall inside the nucleus, as moving electron always emit radiations or always loses energy because of the classical theory existing at that time. But then the Bohr explained that no, electrons do not lose energy, they stay in the stationary orbit, and in that orbit they keep moving on. But the question is, what is a stationary orbit? So stationary orbits are there, that orbit where the particle does not lose energy. But why it does not lose energy, that is the important thing. Because there the stationary waves are formed. All right. But what is a stationary waves? Let's see first that. Suppose you have a string in your hand, and one end of the string is clamped, all right, fixed. And suppose you move the string, so what will happen? The wave will pass over here. But at this end, again it will be reflected back. So this type of wave formed, which is, you can say, the nodes and antinodes are formed, these are called as stationary waves. So de Broglie waves or matter waves, if we introduce that concept, we can very well explain the concept of the electron in the stationary orbit. Now, since we know that electron is continuously moving in the orbit, since it is moving in the orbit, waves are associated with it that are called as matter waves. And since these matter waves are stationary waves, there is no loss of energy. Now see what is stationary over here, okay? Stationary over here means, suppose the wave starts from one end, then it will come and end to this portion only. From where it will start, it will end there only. For this is for n equal to 1. Alright? If it is n equal to 2, what will happen? It will have something like this. I am not too good in drawing figure. Let me draw once again. See, you will get only 2 crust, you can say. This is for n equal to 2. 2 crust only. You can see very well from this figure which I am showing you here. See, here, see the board line. 1 crust and another crust. The loop is complete. You should have complete loop. If you have 2 crust or 2 trough, it is for n equal to 2. Now see for n equal to 3. Suppose the wave starts from this end. It will start from here, it will go like this, and then it will come to end at this. So from where it starts, it comes to end at that point only. And if it is n equal to 3, you have 3 crust and 3 trough. If it is n equal to 4, I have not shown in the figure, you will have 4 crust and 4 trough. But the important is, from where it starts, it will end to that point only. So this is called as stationary wave, and using this concept we can very well understand the Bohr quantization rule, that the electrons travels in the stationary orbit and there is no loss of energy. Now I would like to introduce a new concept of principle of superposition. Superposition means overlapping. It's simple concept, overlapping. But what happens when the wave overlaps? That is the very important concept. See, we have taken few waves, 5 waves we have taken. All have same amplitude, but approximately different frequencies. All right? All have same amplitude, but little bit different frequency. Now, when they overlap with each other, what happens? Redistribution of energy takes place. This redistribution of energy is called as interference. At some point where the crust overlaps the trough, destructive interference takes place. And where the crust overlaps the crust, constructive interference takes place. Let's see in this figure. All right, see here. Here you have trough and here you have crust. All right, if they will intersect with each other, they will overlap with each other, energy will be very less or minimum, because they are not exactly up and above, but little bit shifted. But still, you have minimum energy over there. But where for example, see here, this portion and this portion. Now both crusts are overlapping with each other. When the crusts are overlapping, what will happen? Intensity will increase. Again, I will explain you on the board also. See, suppose I have one wave like this. All right. Now, if suppose I have one more wave like this, let us assume. Now, this is first wave and this is your second wave. All right. Now, when they superimpose with each other, just for simplicity, I am taking 2 waves. What will happen? The resultant wave will be something like this. All right, resultant wave will be something like this. See, the intensity of the wave decreased. All right. Suppose instead of this, suppose I have one wave like this and another wave like this. Now here you see very clearly that this is first wave and this is second wave, and both the crust are in the same direction, trough are in the same direction. What will happen? The resultant wave will be something like this. The formula is y is equal to y1 plus y2. This is the vector sum of the amplitudes. All right. So y is equal to y1 plus y2. If you have number of waves, then it will become y3 and y4 and so on. All right. So this phenomena or the redistribution of energy is called as interference. So sometimes when crust overlaps the trough, destructive interference takes place, and when crust overlaps the crust or trough overlaps the trough, constructive interference takes place. So when this superposition takes place, we get some new figure like this, which you are seeing here. All right. Now this, at this end, intensity is 0. This is destructive interference. And at this end also, energy is 0, intensity is 0. This is destructive interference. But see here, you have maximum interference over here. So this delta x position, so this, the resultant superposition of the wave is called as wave packet. All right. So when we say light travels in the form of bundles, actually it is the wave packets. Light travels in the form of wave packets. Clear? Now, suppose an electron is moving. When an electron moves, it doesn't mean that it gives only one wave. It gives number of waves, although of equal amplitude but different frequency, slightly different frequency. So what happened? They all superimpose with each other. When they superimpose, wave packets are formed. All right, it is very clear. Now, the velocity with which the wave packet move, you can see in the second figure, a purple ball is moving. Okay, see this purple ball. This is following on the path of the wave packet. The velocity with which the whole wave packet move is called as group velocity. While the velocities with which the waves are moving, you can see in the second figure the green ball is moving. All right, a green ball is there. See, it is moving over here. See this green ball. This is following the path of the wave. All right, so that the velocity with which the green ball is moving or the velocity with which the waves are moving is called as phase velocity. So again I am repeating, the velocities with which the waves move is called as phase velocity, while the velocity with which the whole wave packet move is called as group velocity. So phase velocity is represented as Vp, while group velocity is represented as Vg. Now, phase velocity is given by the formula Vp is equal to omega by k, where omega is angular frequency and k is propagation constant. See here, omega is 2 pi nu, we know that. This is the standard formula, and k is 2 pi by lambda. So 2 pi and 2 pi will cancel out and you will get nu lambda, which is the standard formula of the velocity. So velocity of the wave is given by omega by k, while group velocity is given by d omega by dk. Now I am not going in the derivation part. The relation between group velocity and wave velocity is given by Vg is equal to Vp minus lambda dVp by d lambda. Now, if dVp means change in phase velocity with respect to change in wavelength is 0, that means dVp by d lambda is 0, then what will happen if this term is 0? Then Vg will become equal to Vp. That means group velocity is equal to phase velocity. That implies that it is non-dispersive medium. All right, non-dispersive medium. So when there is no change in the wavelength, no change in the phase velocity with change in wavelength, then it is called as non-dispersive medium. For example, air or vacuum and all. Now suppose dVp by d lambda, this term, is not equal to 0. It is something greater than 0. All right. If it is greater than 0, that definitely then Vg will be less than Vp. All right. Group velocity will be less than the phase velocity. So when the change in wavelength, phase velocity changes, then that is called as dispersive medium. All right. Is not equal to 0, then this is called as dispersive medium. For example, in mica and all, when the light travels or the matter travels, then it is dispersive medium. Now, one more important concept I would like to add here. Suppose the electron or the proton or neutron or whatever matter which is moving, let us assume it has velocity v. All right, called as particle velocity v. Then group velocity is always and always equal to particle velocity, while phase velocity is not equal to particle velocity. Rather, if you see the derivation, which I am not going to deal with that, Vp is equal to c square by v. Now, suppose v is equal to c, then the phase velocity will become equal to the velocity of light. But suppose v is not equal to c, definitely v will be less than c. In that case, Vp will become greater than c, which is not possible. Up till now, what we consider that the highest maximum possible velocity attained by the object is equal to c only. So, if Vp becomes greater than c, that is not possible. So, we say that phase velocity does not have any physical significance. All right. So, Vp is not equal to v. If Vp is not equal to particle velocity, that means phase velocity is not always associated with the wave. But the group velocity is always and always equal to v. That implies that wherever the wave packet goes or wherever the particle goes, the group velocity or the wave packet is always associated with the particle. Now, one more thing, whether the particle is moving with relativistic, is in relativistic case or in non-relativistic case. What is relativistic and non-relativistic case? Relativistic case means the particle is moving approximately equal to the velocity of light. Then that is called as relativistic case. And if the velocity of the matter or the object is very less in comparison to the velocity of light, that is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second, then it is called as non-relativistic case. But whatever the case may be, whether it is relativistic or non-relativistic, group velocity is always and always equal to the particle velocity. That means wave packet is always and always associated with the particle. For today, it's okay. This much only we'll study.